Good morning and welcome. Uh, I've been working fairly hard trying to get all this stuff going with Fedora 34, and I've got some new information that I'd like to share. Uh, I wanted to get my new installation of Fedora 34 on my Mac Pro to work with my X57 system. So I've got another computer that's got a Ryzen chip in it on an X57 motherboard, and I have it set up for SSH. And I tried to get that working, and I had some success with it. I'd like to share that with you. So then I fired up OBS so that I could make a recording, and I was getting messages that the GPU was not supported or that the drivers were messed up. And I don't know why that happened, because I had been making some videos on this system, but for whatever reason it had stopped working. And at that point I thought, well, I'm running on the new Vo driver, and I'm going to have to get proprietary drivers installed on OBS. So what does that entail? Well, let's take a look here. Let's go over here to Alright, so I found this article here which seems to be pretty complete. From this site here, if not true, then false. And it's quite new, as you can see. This was updated May 1st, 2021. And so I started going through it. And so the first thing is you have to find out if your card is supported, which mine is. I have a 1050 Ti, so it's a GTX 10 series. So here it is here. And so it says to use either the 465 or the 460 or the 450 or the 390. So I went over to their website and I downloaded it. And I stuck it over here. Where is it? I stuck it over here. Nvidia Linux x86 64-465.27.run, and then I made it executable with a chmod plus X, and by the way, there's an older article here, a different guide. So supposedly this guide is better, although more complex. But keep this in mind, because we're going to come back to this. So we do this LSPCI and grep for VGA, and we find out what our card is, and then we go over to the Nvidia site, and we don't have, there is no UEFI secure boot on Mac Pros, so we don't have to disable that. And then we want to install the Nvidia driver on Fedora. So we download the package installer, and then, which we've done here, that's this guy. And we do the chmod that we talked about here, then we change to the root user here, do the update, reboot, and then we're going to install this thing. So we need a few things. We need kernel devel, kernel headers, GCC, make, blah, 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 all this stuff, package config. So we do a DNF install for these things, sudo DNF. Well, we don't have to sudo at this point because we become root. And then we echo blacklist nouveau and redirect that into etc modprobe.dblacklist.conf. And in my case, this file did not exist, so this created this file. And then we make this variable here. This is shell variable. Grub, command line Linux, blah, blah, blah. Basically, we're adding this blacklist equals nouveau at the end here. And then we update grub with this statement here. And this gives us a new grub configuration file that includes that blacklist nouveau statement. And then we do a DNF remove xorg-x11-drive-nouveau. So far, so good. Then we back up our old kernel. In case something goes wrong, we can always boot with the old kernel. And then we create a new kernel here with this kernel does not have the nouveau driver. And then we want to reboot to run level 3. So this is like old school stuff. I haven't had to use run levels since working in Unixes back in the 1990s. So it's kind of strange to have to do that in today's world, but this is what I wanted here. And so it gives you a warning here. It says once you do this, you're not going to have access to this guide anymore because you're not going to have a graphical experience anymore. You're going to be at the command line, and so you're not going to be able to pull up a web browser. So I've got another system here. I could always go and look it up, but I thought let me read through this now and see what it is that I'm going to need. So here's how you change the run level here. You do the system control set default multi-user .target. And once you do this, it makes a link, a symbolic link, and then you reboot and you wait for your system prompt to come up, which never happens because this is a Mac Pro, and so it's weird. So the thing about the Mac Pro is that a run level 3, you cannot see any of that through your fancy Nvidia graphics card. You can only see it through the graphics card that came with the system. This old piece of garbage. That's why I have 2 video cards in this system. Just for this sort of thing. So I had to go take my my cable, which is I guess it's a DVI to HDMI cable, and I had to move that from the new 1050 Ti card down onto whatever this I think it's an AMD card, and then I was able to see my command line. So at that point, I CD'd over into this directory, this one here, my home, Bard, downloads, Nvidia directory, and I ran this. And you get these let me see if I can show you. You get this sort of a screen that comes back. And so I said yes, and of course it comes back with an error. It's not going to just run. So at this point, excuse me, what do? Well, you go back into that system control. Why is this not showing up here? I'll find it back up here. system control, set default, and what you do is you type in graphical.target. Let me look that up and make sure that I'm getting it right. Yes, graphical.target. And then you reboot, and then you go and you switch that DVI cable back to the new graphics card, because now you do have a graphical environment again. So that didn't work. So what did I do next? I started looking around through this thing, and I didn't see any thing that applied to the kind of error that I was getting, which I didn't write down, by the way. Had I written it down, I could tell you what it was, but it wasn't this one. So it seemed to suggest that I already had drivers installed, they just weren't the correct ones. So I thought, let me come back here to the to this old version of doing things and see if I could get anything to work on that. Let me see. I think I have that here. This is where that link took me, the Fedora 20 installation. And so I started going through the statements here, and these are just informational. And so I became root here. And then I tried this thing, yum update kernel, and it didn't work. Did I do this? Was this the one I did? Well, let's see. We can take a look at my history here, and we can see what happened. All right, so this is what I did. I did this RPM minus QA. And I don't think I even have this RPM command on here anymore. So that didn't work. And then I did a DNF search Nvidia, and that didn't come up with anything particularly helpful. It showed me this module here, which I thought would have been the right one. And so I did a sudo DNF install of that, and it came back and said, well, it's already installed. So that didn't help. So then I did this yum install Plymouth theme, Spinfinity, and sudo yum install, because I wasn't root at the time. And then I did Plymouth set default theme Spinfinity, and here. And then this sudo user libexec Plymouth update init rd, and rebooted. And this, I don't know, this Plymouth is just the splash screen that you get when you're booting up. So I didn't think this was going to help. However, it did. When the system came back up, I couldn't read it anymore because I have a high DPI screen. And so somehow the resolution got set back down to 100%. What am I talking about here? If I do a display displays here, settings displays, it had set the scale down here to 100%. I need it to be at 200%. So I came in and reset it to 200%, and then I did an about, and this had changed to GP107, and then this bracket here, GeForce GTX 1050. So somehow some change had occurred to my drivers. And then I was able to get OBS running again. However, it wasn't running correctly. It was allowing me to use my video camera, but it was not allowing me to do a screen capture. So at that point, I uninstalled OBS, and then I went into my home directory there, the .config. So cd return, that got me in my home directory, cd.config, that got me in my config directory. And I did a listing there, and I saw, oh, there's an OBS Studio directory, so I removed that. rm-rf OBS Studio // And once that was gone, I started looking around for problems that people had had with OBS. And it seems that the OBS version that is in the Software Center is not very new, and therefore may not have been the best way to install it. So instead, I did a snap install OBS Studio, and I think that got a newer version. When that started up, it went through the process again of looking at my system and deciding the best way to configure it. And then once that happened, I was able to go in and install both and record both from my camera and directly from the screen. So that's working. So now, finally, we get back to what I wanted to do all along, which was run X. And so what I did was this export display equals :1. This is being done on my box called Dora, which is going to be the X server, right? Then I SSH'd over to well, this wouldn't work here. You actually have to start X up. So where is it? You have to do, after you export the display like this, you do a start X, and this is something that I believe you only have to do once. Once you do this, then the service is running, and unless you stop the service, it's going to start every time you log in, or every time you boot up, it's going to start. And I think that when I did this initially, that's when my my drivers broke, and I was no longer able to use OBS. So yeah, I said I didn't really understand why, and that's true. I don't really understand why they broke, but I think this was the initial cause of it. But anyway, coming back down here, once that's done, you can do an SSH over to the system that you're interested in using as a client, and then add this -X at the end. And so I can do that here. And of course I had set up SSH before. Now, what's happening here is I don't have that machine running, so it's not going to work. Let me just do this. Let me go back here and let me pause here, and I'll be right back. All right, so I'm back. So I've just started that system up, and it may take a little while to get going. Let's give it another try here. All right, so I'm in there. So now let's do an xcalc here, and I'm doing this on the system barred, and it gives me an error there, which I'm going to have to look into to figure out what's going on here. But look here, here's my xcalc program. Moreover, let me split this horizontally here. This one here, if I do a host name, not working. Because I spelled it wrong, that's why. Host name. I'm on Dora here, right? Keep that in mind. This terminal is Dora. This terminal up here is Smaug. And if I do an X clients now, what's the matter with this thing here? I can't type today. XLS clients. You'll see here that, you know, all of these things are running here on Dora, but this last excuse me, this last one is running on Smaug. So mission accomplished. This is something I was unable to get working on Ubuntu, and one of the reasons I decided to switch over to Fedora on this Mac Pro was so that I could export my display, and because I want to run Smaug as a headless server with no GPU in it, just with my TPU, my K80 TPU. And there's a number of reasons why I want to do that, and so far I can't, because when I take the GPU out, it doesn't boot. So that's the next problem to solve. But here we're one step closer, because we're able to get X11, an X11 client to display here. Anyway, that's the current state of affairs, and I thank you for watching. I hope you learned something. Thank you very much.